Let's officially put a bow on the weekend. Monday, back to work. The Real Kyper and Bourne Show at Kypreos. Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee, Derek Brandeo, and Jake the Snake Schultz with you for the next 2 hours, including all Leaf Hour edition of our show. Toronto Maple Leafs drop both halves to a back-to-back. They snuck out a point Sunday on a game that we did on Sportsnet. But overall, not a great feeling on maybe where they were this weekend, where they're at in general. Let's start with you, JB, your overall assessment of the weekend.
First off, Kip, we never did note that our record of doing regional games for Sportsnet and them losing in horrific fashion continued.
Is it us?
It might be us.
Should they?
You guys gotta start working for Prime.
Yeah, Prime is the magic touch.
If we got to take one for the team and put,
If it means a Leafs Cup,
and put Sammy and Gordo on the show.
What would you say?
I'll do it.
Here.
But I'll put a bow on the weekend by saying I thought in the second half of the back-to-back in particular, they looked slow and tired. And I know it's early in the season. We don't want to hear those sort of things, but slow feels like a bit of a conclusion for me where this team is just having trouble creating offense, Kip. I mean, there's a number of games this season where they just can't seem to produce enough goals. And we go back to last year's playoffs, and it more and more is like, well, the core guys score, so let's surround them with non-scorers. And it's like, someone, Robertson or McMahon or someone break out from the depth outside of Matthew Knies has been a nice plus. That's about it.
Slow and tired is what you got out of it, Sammy?
Yeah, I think that's pretty well said. I am a little bit concerned about the play of Auston Matthews to this point of the season, and I think that's a big storyline. Like, listen, when he's going, Marner's going, Nylander's going, Tavares he goes sometimes he doesn't. They're a hard team to beat in general, but when one of the four or two of the four aren't really lighting it up, you really start to see flaws with this team, and Matthews hasn't been his usual self in terms of shooting the puck in the net. I think I've seen that his shooting percentage isn't great to start this year, missing the net a lot more than he has been. I don't know if it's the captaincy or whatever, but that stuck out to me. You know, that's the type of game where he makes a great pass to Nylander on the power play goal, but that's one where he shoots one in the net and it's a 2-1 game where you go to overtime, he gets one in overtime. He's just lacking that sting for me.
So it was last year where he had the back-to-back hat tricks
To start the year.
And then he went through a stretch where I think he had one goal in 8 games or 9 games. Yeah, something like that. And he's been known to have long streaks of not putting the puck in the net, but there's no worry here right now, is there?
No, not for me. I mean, the funny thing is you look at other players on other teams that score goals, and that guy gets 40 goals or whatever, and you don't watch him every game. You don't realize 40 goals doesn't come a goal every second game. You know, it comes in a hat trick and 5. That's just kind of the nature of scoring goals in the NHL. I would say one of the main things for me, Kip, is he's being used differently. You know, he has taken the most defensive zone draws. Him and Marner have started in the D zone more this year than Tavares and Kampf, and that was not the case under Keefe, where Tavares and Kampf started more D zone draws. So they're starting more in their own end. They're spending more time in the D zone than the O zone as a result. It's not going in, but he's still getting lots of shots. I'm not that worried about it. You got any fears that it's a greater issue? You already hear people going, is he hurt? Is he...
I've seen the hurt thing.
Yeah, but
I've seen that.
Everyone says that anytime someone's cold for a bit, it's like, hurt? It's like, I don't think so. Looks fine to me.
I'm not overly worried based on the fact that we've seen long stretches where he's kind of got cold. You know how I believe, or my beliefs on where he needs to end up when this thing's all said and done. Does he need to look like a 60 or 70 goal scorer? If he doesn't get 50, is it a disappointment? No, because we're way beyond that. We're now at the point of what does it look like?
Are you well-rounded?
Towards building something towards the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So he'll always be a threat. There's no question that he'll always be the guy that they worry about most shooting the puck.
Yeah.
We've seen Mitch Marner handling the puck probably more in the last 10 days than we saw all of the first 2.5 weeks of the season. So he seems to be looking a lot more like himself, albeit he'd like to have more than 2 goals for the season. Mm-hmm. But it's just a matter of now Auston finding those seams. Like even the goals that we're accustomed to seeing where he can score from 40 feet out when he toe drags it in, changes the angle and catches the goalie a little sleep off the post. Doesn't seem like those opportunities are there like they were.
I do wonder with those ones if that's just not, that never felt like a sustainable way to score to me anyway. You know, like everyone's kind of figured, all right, he pulls it into his feet, a foot, and he shoots it beside the shin pad and like the goal. I don't know, like that
So
those should have been stopped sometimes, and now they're maybe onto him a bit with them.
I saw a tweet this morning. This comes from Corsi HL on Twitter. Matthews 5-on-5 shooting percentage 24-25 is 5.88%. Matthews 5-on-5 shooting percentage from last season was 14.9.
Yeah.
The power play this year 6.25, and last year it was 20.48.
Yeah.
So there's a huge thing there. And this one stuck out to me. He missed the net on 23.2% of his unblocked shots this year, and last year he missed the net only 17.6% of the time on his shots.
That's a big one.
And to me, he is missing the net a lot.
But I will say, a lot of times I don't love when people talk about shooting percentage because often there's a reason the shots aren't going in. Like you're not getting to the areas as well.
Yeah.
You know, you get to the dangerous areas, your shooting percentage goes up. I'm not sure he's getting to the areas quite as well. You know, I shared that stat with you guys this morning. First place in the NHL in high danger scoring chances this year is Matthew Knies, not Auston Matthews, who typically leads those sort of categories. So, you know, I'm not as sure that your shooting percentage is going to be down if you're not getting to the dangerous areas as much.
We've seen a lot of attempts at bad angles for me, you, Sammy, and most of the NHL. But for him, there's always the thought that he's going to find a way to get a bounce and put it in. He has scored on occasion from bad angles.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
So him and Draisaitl, they whip it on net low from the...
You think of that one against Buffalo last year where he rips it off the sideboards? It's in before Levi knows it even what happened.
Yeah.
But sometimes the stars have to align for that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
You got to get some puck luck. You got to get
That's when you're so confident that you're not hesitating. It's just like, it's just happening. And we talked about it last night on the power play. When he gets the puck right now, everything's dusted off, right? It's a couple stick handles and a look. I guess he's a lefty. He's always a couple of touches.
It's funny to me to watch a line that has Auston Matthews and Mitch Marner on it. And, you know, Matthew Knies, I think over the past 2 weeks, I would say that Matthews has been the third best guy on that line, which is crazy to say. Like, it's just how good Knies has been, especially on the forecheck. Like, he's the most coachable guy ever because Berube told him to go north and south, and all he does is go.
You're feeding right into his wheelhouse because he's a fantastic skater.
Yes. He's
got about 230 pounds to go and drive a forecheck. He's got quick feet for a man that heavy. Like it constantly plays into where he can.
But he just doesn't. Like Matthews just has the puck so much less because of how well Marner and Knies are playing.
Is Knies being noticed that much more at the expense of Auston Matthews' game?
It's interesting. I just opened up Sportlogic to look at some stats, and like first place in the NHL in expected goals based on shots and stuff is Auston Matthews.
Yeah,
you know, he's ahead of Kirill Kaprizov, Nikita Kucherov. Like he's still pretty damn good. Yeah. But yeah, I get the idea that it has changed with Knies' resurgence or emergence. He is becoming a top end guy. You know, maybe this isn't the time to talk about it, but I wonder if Team USA is interested in Knies. He is a different player than he was last year. You look at his ice time per game for the Leafs, 14 minutes, 15 minutes, 16 minutes. Last time he's 19 and a half. He's catching up to Nylander. He's ahead of Tavares. Like, this guy is becoming a star for this team.
They have a lot of good players.
What's that?
They got a lot of good players.
Yeah, you know, that's true. They're so loaded. Maybe that's
and Boldy's a guy with Guerin leading the charge would probably take more of a place on as a role than Knies for me right now.
For sure.
So I mean, like, I'm not overly concerned about Matthews, but I think his lack of production, you can kind of point to their uneven start in terms of like he's won them so many games where he just scores 2 or 3, has 3 points, has 4 points. Like it's just
they're 6-5-2. If he's got a few more goals than the power plays average, they're 8-3-2.
So a lot of it comes down to that for me. But I mean, they're getting nothing from the bottom six. Like, you know, you get the late one from Lorentz where he scores against the Blues.
Yeah, that was
good goal.
Great.
But it's his second of the year.
Yeah.
Camp's giving them nothing offensively, obviously. Domi barely doing anything. It's very tough.
Yeah.
Outside of being snake bitten, we saw a pretty good response from Auston Matthews, albeit down 3-1, 200 feet from your own net. You don't typically want a player to take a penalty on at that point of the game, but it wasn't just anybody. It was Auston Matthews coming to the aid of Mitch Marner. Let's get Craig Berube's thoughts on that Saturday night.
I have no problem with Matthews doing what he did. I mean, Mitch Marner got drilled at the side of the net. Should have been a penalty. They missed it. So, for sure that's a penalty, and they missed it. And, he's sticking up for his teammate there. I have no problem with that.
I think that's nice to set the precedent that I'm going to be okay with those penalties. You guys want to stand up for each other, green light from the coach. I like that.
I mean, just not to do ref corner here.
Do it.
What are you looking at?
Hey, Stripes, what are you watching?
But, are you the one of the premier players is standing in front of the net where the puck is, gets frozen, and he gets absolutely buried. It's just nothing? Yeah. And then you give Matthews one for the retaliation? That's just world-class bad refereeing.
Yeah.
That drives you nuts.
That.
No. Drives you nuts if you're a coach.
Yeah. They did kill it off.
Yeah.
And that's one of those where short-term pain for long-term gains. That's kind of the response that you can hope Auston is feeling now moving forward with his new captaincy. That's something that shouldn't be any hesitation. There shouldn't be any second guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's got to go into that pile and say, that's just not good enough.
But, there have been now a few games where in our group chat or even just in person when we've been there like last night, it's like now would be a good time for Matthews to have like a shift. And he doesn't seem to have an extra step or a gear or whatever it may be. But, we talked about Knies and gave him lots of praise here on the show already. Going in on the forecheck in the second and third period of that game against Minnesota, there's a couple times he's going in and kind of pushing the guy.
Hey, you try doing it like 40 times
I'm not saying it's
in
easy.
24 hours. I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it's a natural progression that you can't play that hard that often every shift and give Craig Berube exactly what he wants. So I'm not surprised if the foot's off the gas pedal a bit. Think about the way these guys have played since they broke into the league and what Craig's asking for. It's night and day.
Mm-hmm.
And pace of play with back-to-backs. And now, how many of those grade A forecheck games are you going to have over the course of 82 games?
Well, that's
right?
it. So does that mean Berube should change it a bit in the regular season?
I don't know, or get in better shape. I don't think he's going to take his foot off the gas pedal, and that's where you hope that you got 20 guys. So if Knies isn't on top of his forecheck game, then McMahon's going to pick up the pace. Holmberg's going to pick up the pace. Other guys you're going to lean on over the course of the season, but if they all kind of shut down at the same time, then you're going to have nights like last night where it really looks like your foot is off the gas pedal.
It's funny, last year they averaged 26.7 hits per game, and they averaged actually fewer than that this season with Berube. But it does seem like there's more of an effort for guys to go in and do that, so I don't know how that checks out necessarily. It does seem tiring, though, to play that way. So whatever it may be, it was visible to me at the end of that game. So just back on the road.
Just to finish off on Matthews thing, and it's, something we talked about a little bit on Leafs Talk last night. Doug mentioned it on Friday in our Off the Rails segment where the 200-pound C off Tavares' chest onto Matthews. Is that something here?
Mitch Marner's got 14 points and Matthews is, kind of right there with him. He's got 2 goals. We don't think Marner's suffering from anything, or William Nylander's got less points than last year. He's
okay, I'm just saying. I'm just saying,
I think it's we're looking for a reason, and it's
just the results. I guess the results have always fallen with him, but when you're not the captain, I guess it's a little bit different. But when it's a shaky start with you wearing the C, maybe it feels a little bit different. I don't know. I'm looking for reasons.
Yeah,
that's it.
No,
it's a fair question. It's a fair point that he may be feeling a little differently this season, and I hope that we keep seeing these subtle changes in his leadership to build off of what we saw Saturday night, coming to the aid of Marner. But there's no doubt after, 8 seasons now, that his first thought is, if I'm going to lead this team, I got to lead putting the puck in the net. Mm-hmm. That's the most natural feel that he has.
Yeah.
After that, he's going to have to come out of, the mindset that as long as I'm scoring, I'm good. And it's like, no, not anymore. Now it's plus as the captain of the Leafs. Maybe he's got a few different things he's thinking about besides putting the puck in the net. And
yeah, it could be, it's all a combination, right? New coach, more D-zone starts, wearing the C. It's all just weighing a little bit differently on how he was feeling.
I will say that I thought that line was awesome defensively last night.
Yeah.
I thought that was
they had some heavy shifts in the first year. They had the puck.
And that Eriksson Ek is a really good defensive center, and I think he probably played 85 to 90% of the minutes against Matthews. I thought it was a tight game, and they didn't get the extra point, but just interesting question on Matthews' captaincy.
Anthony Stolarz was the reason they got a point last night.
Yeah.
That third period, the Leafs had nothing left in the tank, and he was battling.
The coach mentioned something to that effect. Right. It's a short, sweet one, like many of them were over the past weekend, but Berube clipped 7 on Stolarz.
We were a little gassed in the third, killed a lot of penalties, and we were gassed, but he stood tall for us, Yeah, it was good. It's a good point. Good point.
Would we say he dropped his stick 6 times last night?
4 for sure.
I mean, I don't know what kept happening. But.
It's giving me bad Samsonov flashbacks, boys.
Oh,
that's where the comparison ends, mind you. But boy, he dropped his stick a lot, and that reminded me of Samsonov used to do it every game.
Yeah.
We'll pick up on Stolarz. Let's just get an overall thought from Craig Berube on last night's game versus the Minnesota Wild.
Well, we just, for me, it's the mindset. We didn't play the way we played in the first, direct, hard on things, pucks. I thought that we were light in the second period, and, we tried to make a couple plays late in a shift, and it turns over, and that's the result of the first goal they got. And then now these guys are going back in their own zone, tired. It's things like that, managing the game. But for me, it's, playing the way we played in the first period. We didn't do that in the second.
Okay, that was the Blues, actually.
That was the game against the Blues, yeah.
But it could almost work.
The one point he did make there about how they tried to make a play late in a shift, and it's about staying on the gas, doing the consistent little things, getting it deep, and they didn't do it against the Blues. Why don't we take it to Berube Clip 3 and his overview of the Wild game now?
Real good battle. Special teams were good tonight. Power play got us a goal, and we killed penalties well tonight.
Okay.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
Short and sweet. So let's just stay on Stolarz for a second, because I think it was our post-game comment last night on Sportsnet where we had a discussion on, I think we expect Stolarz to play Boston, and I'm like, and Friday for me, and possibly Wall maybe on Saturday.
Yeah.
But for me, it's crystal clear after the weekend that like Stolarz is just head and shoulders above Joseph Wall, and that you are now not exactly lighting it up in the Atlantic. And if you want to start distancing yourself from the middle of the pack in the Eastern Conference, start leaning on Stolarz a lot more.
Yeah, I didn't agree last night. I don't agree now. I feel like Wall deserves a chance to get his feet under him, because I think if you don't let him get his feet under him, you're relying on Stolarz, and now you got no backup plan. I think you got to secure the backup plan here a little bit.
He can remain the backup plan.
Well, sure, it's a backup plan, but let him get playing well, being a part of the team. No team B. It was meant to be team A and team B. Or sorry, it's meant to be starter.
Based on this, then you've got Joseph Wall starting tomorrow night against the Boston Bruins.
That's fine. The Bruins aren't any better than the Blues or the Wild or any other team.
I think they're nuts if they start Joseph Wall against the Bruins tomorrow night.
I mean, this is what we criticized Sheldon Keefe for, was that it was always everything he could to get the 2 points that night rather than zooming out and being like, what's the best thing for this team this year?
But I think the 2 points are really important against the division.
I know you're too desperate, too early. You're too desperate.
I mean,
Sammy.
I'm
Division rival.
totally team Stolarz. Like
He's the better goalie. I obviously prefer him right now too.
I think right now, like Kyper said, you're kind of off to an uneven start. And every game that he's gone in there, I guess outside the Rangers game, where he was still pretty good, but he gets out goaltended by the best goalie in the world, he's given you a chance to win and has been excellent. Like he's been one of the main reasons you've won a lot of these games. To me, you press. I don't know how long this is going to last with Stolarz. Like I'm loving it. I'm so invested in the guy. I just love watching him play net. I think you just ride the hot hand here. And to me, it's Stolarz Tuesday, Stolarz Friday, Wall Saturday, second half of back-to-back. That's what I'm doing.
Stolarz has just made the save that he needs to make.
Yeah.
And Saturday night, Wall didn't.
I agree.
And I don't know what he ended
had
up
some
with.
bad luck.
3 on 14 shots. I don't care how well he played. You can't give up 3 goals on 14 shots. He
It
needed.
had to be 24 shots, didn't it?
Well, no, the first 3 goals.
Oh, I see.
Right? It's not the total shots.
Gotcha.
I think he gave up 3 on, 14, 16. Whatever it is, it was not a great number. Put him behind the 8 ball. They didn't dig themselves out. He needed to make a save off of Parayko. He needed one save.
The second one?
Pick one.
The second one. The second
he
one.
just needs to make that save. That's a Stolarz save.
Yeah.
Right from training camp on out.
But no one listening to the three of us right now is hearing me say Stolarz is bad or not good enough or wouldn't make saves. To me, it's like Woll was in game 6 of the Stanley Cup playoffs for the Leafs last year and was amazing, about to shut out the Bruins. And all of a sudden the momentum was like, this guy is the guy.
Yeah.
He's saving their season in game 5 and game 6. And he's the dude. He's hurt into camp.
And then he lost his net. He's lost his net.
He's lost his net because someone else played well, not because he played poorly. He deserves the chance to recover.
When do you ever lose your net other than that?
When you play badly. That's the
Right?
other time you do. And he hasn't lost it because he's played badly, and we're in game 12.
But you
Give him a chance to find it again.
You've won the net so far, and I need a big win against a rival Tuesday night.
Yeah.
They do need to win.
So let's
Listen,
just
you're-
learn. Let's just agree to disagree.
Agreed.
Thanks, Kev.
But I like, sure, if you want to go, like, Stolarz is absolutely no-brainer starting Tuesday for me. If you want to talk about Friday, if Friday's Wall, that's fine. Then you switch it to Stolarz in the second half of the back-to-back, that's fine. But there is no world that if I'm the coach or the general manager or anyone making a decision that Anthony Stolarz isn't starting Tuesday night. It's a huge game. He's earned it. He's been way better. He's been there. He's been available. Done. End of story.
All right.
End of story.
Good.
I can't believe
We're
it. So you, anyways.
We're good.
I've said my piece.
Yeah.
I know, but I disagree with it.
We've agreed to disagree.
2 against 1. We win.
We do not agree.
I don't know if that's how it works.
Do you think if the Leafs made decisions on their lineup based on the three of us finding a majority opinion, do you think they would have more success than they've had?
Boy, I don't know. That's a great question. Probably not.
How about you?
100%.
That's a great
That's a good drop. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
Power play.
50%. Right? Last night, 50%. Like,
Yeah.
how do you feel other than great about Leaf power play right now?
I thought it looked a lot better. It's I think I've told you a couple times. I mentioned last night I was a forward who played the point on the power play in college. It's very hard to make that transition. Mitch Marner is significantly better at walking the blue line than me, but it is risky.
That's not the word you used last night. And I don't know if you said it on air. I think you said it on air or you told me it off air. But you used the D word.
Dangerous?
No.
Desperate?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they're
Thank you.
obviously
Did you
desperate.
say that on air or off air?
I don't remember.
I'll say
I
it
don't
on
remember
air.
anything.
Okay.
They're desperate, baby.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
And when you're in last place with $50 million out there, putting 5 forwards is a desperate move. Are we all in agreement on that?
Great observation.
Okay.
That's like,
Okay.
that's
So-
like putting left-handed
so-
from
right.
10 feet.
Yeah.
Like,
So-
Talking to my dad. Hi, Dad.
Good short-term move to kind of alleviate some of the pressure that's on you and Mark Savard. But there's no longevity with 5
You
forwards.
don't think so? No one's done it with any
Just-
prolonged
We
success.
are at the beginning of November. Just picture OEL and Morgan Riley sitting beside each other on the bench for a month without seeing any power play time other than maybe the last 15
What's your worry
seconds.
that they'd be grumpy about it?
It's just more separation. Like, there's no world that you cannot pick one D to go out there on a power play. It's just, it doesn't work. For me, it doesn't work. And it kind of goes back to the team A, team B thing. It's okay for now, but eventually you're going to have to need those guys to come back.
It feels like the unplug and replug of an electronic device that's not working, or like in basketball, you're playing 21 with someone where you throw it off the free throw line, so they have to move their
The old
feet.
spinner.
It just feels like, I don't know, let's just try get them off the line here and start over. So, a little bit of desperation. Right. Yes, I do think, though, like if you
OEL was brought in to help Morgan
Riley and
offensively.
The plan.
They make $10.5 million combined between those two, and neither of them can get on the power play.
Yeah, but if one of those guys comes off, someone else who makes a lot of money comes off. I mean, it's...
No, but like you have the two defensemen that are supposed to be offensively inclined.
Yeah,
and it's not a good look.
OEL was the guy who Klingberg was supposed to be the guy last year.
See, I don't remember sitting here with you before the season hearing that OEL was going to run PP1.
No, it wasn't about PP1. He was about a viable option to help.
It's an option, and right now he's not the best
to help
one.
Morgan. And now you're asking both of them to sit and watch a power play. I was okay with it. I liked it last night. I liked Marner back there. I like the way Marner can disguise and
doesn't solve the shot from the top problem, but he does sift
it would
it
help
through.
if he had a bomb back there.
But he can sift it through, and he did that last night. He found a way to find a lane, and
probably a better decision maker up top there than either Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
I mean, he's one of the best
Riley.
passers in the NHL.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he's making great decisions, and he's got a bit of defensive instincts. Didn't they play him at defense a year ago?
That was the thing. I forgot about that.
That happened.
Oh,
that happened, right?
God.
But
I remember.
you made the point, like, or was it Elliott, that he thinks sometimes the big shot's gone, and I'm like, I just watched the weekend. I watched Parayko with two huge shots from the point. Then I watched.
To me, it's Tampa and Bouchard and Edmonton.
Spurgeon last night.
Yeah.
He one times it off of Minnesota's first goal in front of the net, and I'm like, the big shot lives, man.
Hedman's threat. It's the threat of it. It's the nuclear option. It's that if you're not in these lanes, because we move it around, just we can hit it from here, and it's nice to have that option.
There's also this guy that's closed in on a pretty big record in Washington that hammers it pretty hard too.
He slaps the shot.
He
Still.
he hammers it pretty good.
Still.
So you need to have the threat, and they don't have it. So
next hour, we'll have Alan May talk about that a little bit more, Capitals analyst for Monumental Sports Network. And Frank Seravalli will join us at the top of the hour as well. So plenty more.
It does fall apart, though, the 5-forward power play. I saw it in the Marlies that we tried it for a while, and it led to the biggest Dubas and Keefe fight I ever saw, where at one point Keefe said, why don't you fix it then, big mouth? He said something like that. It was, when we'd given up like 3 shorties in 2 games at the 5-man power play. If you stick with it for long enough, you'll have that game. Yeah. Where it's just a couple of shorties straight away.
They did get caught out on the ice for the whole 2 minutes.
They got lucky,
too. And Auston ended up being the last guy back.
It reminded me of Marchand in overtime with Auston back there, where I was like, he looks tired, and that's Kaprizov on him.
Yeah, Kaprizov didn't get the puck to challenge him one-on-one, but it wasn't that far off from it happening.
Yeah. So, you don't want to stay with it for too long. No defensive instincts are natural for forwards.
It is funny, though, like how bad their yips are on the power play, that the first unit had 5 forwards, and then the second unit had 2 D-men. It's like, we literally have no idea what we're doing.
And even I think Nylander's one-timer winning off the skate of the D.
He didn't hit it hard.
They needed a break there to get one.
Savvy's like, I don't know. I'm just throwing anything out. They're literally dead last. It's crazy.
5 forwards. What about no forwards? Let's try no forwards. They're desperate.
Let's go to Morgan Riley, get his thoughts on the game last night.
It's interesting.
I thought it was a good hockey game. Obviously not high scoring, but that's okay. I think we want to get comfortable playing in those types of games. Coming in here on a back-to-back. I thought we were pretty good in the first. I thought we battled, and that's a good team, and so I thought it was a good game. And it's unfortunate we don't get the extra point, but we're moving in the right direction.
They did grind. They did.
It's a heavy game.
The Wild are second best team in the NHL defensively by pretty much every stat. Like, they don't give up much. They're a tough team. You like their decor a lot.
I think it's quietly one of the better ones in the league.
So let's take a look at the Bears.
we're gonna take a break here soon. But after the break, we'll talk more about Robertson and all that stuff. But I'm impressed with what Bill Guerin's done with that team.
They're sitting on a cap hit of
15 million.
Yeah, 14.5 that they can't use.
He's gonna take that nothing trade that we thought about, Kevin Fiala, for that Brock Faber. Oh my God! And he's gonna run it for the next 15 years. That Faber, I'm watching him last
25 a night.
I'm watching him last night.
Buzzing.
He is for me like a Chris Chelios without the ugly mean streak.
Yeah.
Right-handed guy. Right-handed guy that can control the game defensively. Seldom is out of position, and always finds a way to make the right play in a calm way.
Meanwhile, Fiala's a scratch because he's missing meetings.
They gave up a first too. They gave up it was a first and Faber for Fiala.
So Faber's playing with Middleton. Middleton's having a great year.
Yeah.
Spurgeon's playing with Jonas Brodin.
Brodin's
like Bogosian's on the third
too.
pair.
I
don't know anything about Declan Chisholm, but
he's like Ekholm in Edmonton for me.
Brodin, yeah.
Brodin.
That's Swedish D. Frozen face-off.
Yeah. I just frozen face-off.
I don't know. Frozen Four Nations. Four Nations face-off.
There's nothing
Four facing
frozen.
nations off.
There's no frozen in it. But, that's a huge number to, you're playing with a anvil on your back with $15 million. That's 3 players.
It's impressive until you recognize they chose to wear the anvil.
We're all looking for the guy who did this. But I'm impressed, man. And, they wore those jerseys last night. They look so good.
Sexy kit.
Yeah, Kaprizov looks really good. Although I thought the Leafs did a pretty good job on him last night. But anyways, I'm impressed by them.
Okay, let's catch our breath. And when we come back, we'll get into more on the Leaf blue line in terms of those block shots.
One guy's special.
I will tell you who it is after the break. You're watching and listening to the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. The Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee. So overall, the blue line. We heard from Morgan Rowley just moments before we went to break. Nothing outstanding. No one got shot out of a cannon to start the season, but we believe that there's more depth, and it's better than what we've been accustomed to seeing the last few years.
For sure. No argument for me there.
I think McCabe's gotten better.
Yeah.
Him and Tanev playing together is a pairing you could actually picture in the playoffs, shutting somebody down. I like that pairing.
Yep.
Bottom pairing, leave me a little wanting, I would say.
But you know what that is for me is Timmins has been almost found money.
Yeah, he's been good.
Benoit's not been the same
minutes
player.
did Timmins get last
Felt
night?
like he was out there a lot.
He was out there a awful lot.
I will get you that answer.
Right? And I think we discussed this before the weekend that Benoit, you said maybe lost a step. I said it just doesn't seem like to me that he's processing as quick. I thought he was a little better on the weekend.
18 minutes for Timmins.
18 minutes.
Really?
That's a big number.
That is. In a close game. And Benoit got 16.5.
I think if there's 2 guys that have taken advantage of an opportunity and really run with it, it's Knies and Timmins would be 1-2 under a new coach, right?
Yeah. And on the other side of that, I know we want to stay in the decor, but McMahon and Camp, we'll get to them later.
Okay, just and the overall effect Chris Tanev has had. We know what he's notoriously known for, and that's putting his face in front of every shot. Let's get Berube's thoughts on the decor, not just Tanev, but all of them on blocking shots.
D are doing a great job of blocking shots. Big part of the game is, being hard in front of your net. We talked about it tonight. We talked about, that team, they use their D a lot and they get a lot of pucks through. And so we're going to have to be hard at our net tonight. I thought we did a good job.
I know last night you had a couple examples where OEL likes to throw one up the middle.
Yeah. A couple of pizzas. He's
not afraid to toss one.
But it's just
grenade
he's
launcher
such a good
once in a
skater.
while.
Sometimes skate it. There's room ahead of you, and
Yeah.
he tries to fire one through traffic in the neutral zones. Don't do that. We don't need you to do that. He actually is leading the Leafs in ice time this year. Shocked? Anyone?
Really?
Yeah.
I am shocked.
Riley's 4th. He's behind McCabe,
Yeah.
OEL, Tanev.
Some of that probably has to do with him not playing PB1.
Yeah.
Does that worry you at all in terms of wear and tear?
For OEL?
Tanev, OEL, all of it.
Not really. Like, none of them are playing like a crazy amount. I think he's got 22 minutes or something for OEL. Like, it's nothing. Two through the roof anyway.
So the majority of the concern, I know earlier in our show, we were talking about the lack of production out of Auston. He's got to get going. But that probably puts a lot more stress on him when others underneath him can't find the net either.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Hakanpää is going to come back.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll take out Benoit?
I don't know if that blue line has Hakanpää and Benoit in the same game.
Yeah, the
and
idea.
I don't know how you take Timmins out with his right-handed shot in his 18 minutes.
Yeah.
So tell me what's left then.
But Hakanpää's a righty too, so they're gonna have two righties on the bottom pair.
No, it'll be poor Timmins.
You think Timmins is coming out?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're going to want to see if Hakanpää can be of help. With Liljegren gone, like, they kind of need Hakanpää to be okay. Anyway, wait and see on that.
Yeah. Like I said, your guess is as good as mine right now.
Yeah.
I will say I do love how much the Florida Panthers rubbed off on Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
Really surprising. Greasy.
Gracie.
And, like, actually hits guys.
I don't ever remember him like that in Arizona.
No.
He just
Or
seems
Vancouver.
annoyed. Like,
He
didn't have any edge at all in Vancouver.
I don't remember it like this.
I don't remember it either.
I'd love to hear it from people, but I've watched him long enough and I can't remember being like, ooh, he's got a little, but he's
A little
looking for
sneaky,
guys.
dirty,
Yeah.
eh?
Well,
Which is great.
Who'd he punt? Was it Rossi that he did like I was been watching the Vince McMahon doc. He went full stone cold Steve Austin on that guy, just like hammering him on the ice. Like he was punching him and then he was sitting on the bench fooling with his thing. And then Reeves goes over. Like I love that stuff. So yeah, I mean, maybe he didn't need to take an extra two, but he's been sneaky greasy and it's good.
Yeah,
It's
that's
good,
a
Dad.
positive. You were starting to talk about depth scoring.
Yes.
Part of the reason that Austin is playing so much in the D zone is it's just they don't like Kampf. Berube doesn't like Kampf. And he's playing, 12 and a half, 13 minutes a night. So now Austin's in his own end more. So that's one thing. And then Bobby McMahon feels like a very fringe guy here. Can't get any opportunity up the lineup. And that line with him and Domi. Domi has no points in 7 straight games. McMahon,
Yeah, it's gone
real cold.
awfully cold.
And McMahon's the same. I don't think he has a point in a long time.
We saw Nick Robertson scratched Saturday night, only to come back in the lineup against Minnesota. I know we had our preseason conversations on over-under for Nick. You were very optimistic.
I got him over 20 goals on the year. That's what I said. I don't.
Is there a chance that
If he
we
gets
can
traded
get close?
soon, it could happen.
Is there any room at all that he finds a way to contribute like he did last season with his 15, 14?
I'm going to say last night was the worst I've seen him play in, I don't know, maybe ever.
You know why?
Why?
Because he's not playing the game that he thinks he should. Like he's playing.
You're right. He's trying to
he's
hit guys,
he's
rub
running-
them out.
He's like trying to play that he's 6'2" and he's, Berube's telling me a way to play. And he's totally caught between what he's trying to do out there. He has no idea.
That's the best
true.
analysis you've ever done.
It's true. Oh,
Yes.
thank you. I mean, I'm not sure what that says about my other analysis, but he's just.
No, but it's good analysis.
He's stuck. He doesn't know what he's supposed to do on the ice. He's running into guys like he's.
You see him angling guys into the boards, and he can't physically get them into the boards.
I don't know if you guys were watching the game closely. There was a fourth line shift where they must have cycled the puck for a minute and a half.
We clipped it last night.
And Nick
We never
Robertson
shown it.
comes over the boards, has the puck for a millisecond. The guy
Bounces
hammers
off him.
and the puck goes out.
Yeah.
Literally just separated him with the puck from
Yeah.
the gentle
It was,
shoulder
a
and was
minute,
like,
it was
okay.
a minute and a half. They had it in
Killed
the
the rally.
offensive zone, and then the second he touches, it's gone.
Yeah, it was really, really bad.
So
So we had a clip to show last night, but we were trying to keep it a little more positive.
Oh my God. You guys are so nice. Different guys on the panel, right? You're nice guys on the panel.
We had 2 hours to let the real personality pour out.
Yeah. And on this show, we speak like no one's listening
It's
or
true.
no one cares.
This is
to
locker
listen
room
to.
style.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe they don't care.
TV's
Yeah.
a different beast.
Maybe they don't care.
But really comes back to those conversations we had before, is that if he doesn't get an opportunity to be a top 6 guy or start a power play, which he did during the exhibition series, and
Yep.
Found a way to
And he's
get on
playing
this.
with a player or two, usually the top line guy.
But there was just never any room for him, and he's really fallen back right to the same spot he was with Sheldon Keefe.
Yeah, he's played 11:40 last night. Had his shot or whatever. But the reason I said he played bad last night was a purely physical evaluation of his game. Not like his puck touches were bad or he just couldn't get guys off the puck. He got separated from the puck when he had it. All the things where you go size matters were visible last night, and that's not changing. He's not going to become. So I'm with you, Sam. He should almost just. I'm an offensive player. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do all the things and try to get goals for you because I'm not going to help you if you're asking me to be a well-rounded guy.
Or try to sneak him up into the top 6 for a shift here or there. Maybe you can see one go in. Like, it's just what you're trying to make him into. Stop trying to make fetch happen.
No.
It's not going to happen.
No, he is not.
It's just not his game. Yeah. And playing him with Domi and McMahon or Holmberg and it's not a good mix.
Well, it's not a good mix because none of them are going right now.
No.
McMahon, Domi, Holmberg, who was a healthy scratch as well on the weekend, and Robertson. There's 4 depth role players for the Toronto Maple Leafs that can't find the back of the net.
And it says something that Holmberg's a scratch because he loves Holmberg and wants it to work. He wants a true center, a strong guy who's committed defensively. He likes the idea of Holmberg, but he just has been so ineffective. And I think a couple shows ago we had a clip from him where he said that Holmberg just looks a step behind right now. Yeah. And that didn't change, and I think that's why he was out of the lineup.
So, I mean, the bottom 6 in the game last night, they have 6 goals combined on the season, right? 3 from McMahon, 1 from Robertson, and 2 from Lorenz. And the 1 from Robertson was in a 6-1 game.
Yeah.
When they were losing 6-1.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're not, unless you're, I mean, we're getting back to the core of the issue for 8 years here, but it's not good enough for the bottom half of the lineup. So,
no.
Like, you go to the Marlies, you use an example out of one of them for a longer stretch than one healthy game. Scratch.
Send someone down? Is that what you're saying? What's Alex Nylander up? What's going on?
Do you trade? do you look for a trade right now going into American Thanksgiving?
I think that a lot of the underlying numbers for the Toronto Maple Leafs are that they're doing pretty good. Yeah. I don't think this team's in crisis by any means, so I don't think that's necessary.
They are desperate for a center.
But you have just mentioned moments ago that this has been an ongoing issue here with this hockey club.
Yeah.
Is secondary scoring. It's not like just we're talking the
Knies
last
is the
2
first
weeks.
guy where you're like, okay, there's one other guy. There's a 5th guy who could conceivably score.
Like, do you put him somewhere else?
I actually don't think that's a bad idea at all.
Like, he has looked like he could drive a line. Do you put Domi up on the top with those guys and let Knies go down and try to drive guys a bit, but then you're losing what you're getting? Maybe you're just shuffling deck chairs on a certain ship. I don't know, but it's not pretty right now. I know we don't talk about 3-on-3 a lot because it's not real hockey, but can you explain the Domi thought process in overtime?
Sure. So I'm going to sneeze, so someone else talk for a minute.
Uh-oh. On air sneeze.
Kip will kill me if I sneeze. I tried so hard.
Now I'm the only one that has not sneezed this season.
Okay, let's talk about Domi. First off, the Pacioretty play last night, we gave way too much credit to. Elliot was like, yeah, I can see what he's thinking. He's going to the wall. He's the last guy up the ice. Someone's changing. He's cheating, looking for a turnover.
Yes.
It's a terrible play by Pacioretty last night, who's not fast already and probably shouldn't be out on 3-on-3.
When he went over,
Matthew Knies hasn't been out yet.
I was watching the game by myself, and I saw him go over the boards. I was like, Pacioretty.
Yeah.
I said that out loud to myself, to no one. I was like, really?
And sure enough, that burned him.
Yeah.
But
Max just thought he was going to skate into a 40-foot push.
He didn't recognize, that someone was a step behind him with a little more energy and momentum. And so the first touch was a little aggressive for the punted up the ice.
Yeah. And then the natural feel is that he's either going to skate the puck back and then regroup or throw it up the wall. And
He's got a
pretty smart little bugger.
Yeah.
Puts it right back up the middle of the ice to a wide open.
Boldy.
2 of them. It was a 2-on-0.
Yeah,
Beautiful finish.
Oh, that finish was so nasty.
so
just
nice.
Stolarz wasn't within, I don't know, 10 feet of stopping that.
Threw it off the barn end.
Couple other thoughts. first off, in their last 20 overtimes, they've won 8 times. So they're 8-12 in their last 20. So
3-on-3 sucks.
Okay.
And Willie must have all
like
those.
this is not sour grapes because
This
you know
sucks.
your favorite team didn't win, but I'm sick of it.
Sucks.
I'm sick
It's
of
not
it.
hockey.
I'm sick of watching one face-off turn into figure eights for a minute. It's just
It's bad.
it's
Skate for the love of God.
It's just
Challenge the D.
So when did this flip? Because when it first started, it was electric.
Yeah.
It
was
was
a-
breakaways, 2-on-1s.
You know what the grossest part of 3-on-3 is watching you gain a zone and then a guy go, I'm just
I
gonna
know.
take
see.
it back
I don't
out
like
to
what
the
I see.
neutral zone again.
Ugh.
And then
I
just
think I'm in favor of the floating blue line.
3 or 4 times to watch a puck enter a zone and then purposely bring it out because you just feel like regrouping again and killing another 30 seconds off the clock. Like, please do something about this.
Like,
What's the floating blue line, Borny?
It's like once you cross the blue,
It disappears.
the blue line would become the red line at that point. So the offensive zone is all the red line, and if you take it out
it
past
won't
the red,
it
it's-
won't solve anything because they'll just treat it the same way. That they're it's the delay of waiting and waiting and waiting.
Yeah.
It's so not hockey. Like it's so like if the NHL
Leafs love
wants
that they get
if the
to
NHL
skate
wants
slow
it that
and-
badly, like create a 3-on-3 league.
wasn't that going to happen? Wasn't that a rumor for a minute?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think it was either. Yeah, it's bad though, Kip, and it's frustrating to watch. And often, I think these guys are excited that we've all decided we're just going to get to have it for
Yeah.
a bit and play around. It's like, for the love of God, challenge.
Skate fast.
Yeah.
Or just go to 4-on-4.
The other thing for the Leafs, I got a message from a friend here, just that they do have depth scoring potential help. Does Yarn Crocker Dewar interest you? Are they any better with either of those guys?
Yeah, their 10 goals combined will help.
I actually thought the exact same thing where I was like, Yarn Crocker got 20. He's probably good for 14 this year.
Tops.
I
Prorated
don't
for
think
his
Yarn
injury.
Croc's close.
No, eh?
No.
You don't hear much.
Don't hear much.
No.
I'm not sure if he's.
Dewar scored for the Marlies.
I don't think he's
Did he?
skating regularly yet. I could be wrong. We'll maybe send a note to Luke, but you tell me, is all of a sudden that guy's going to pop in the next week?
I don't think so.
I don't think so
That
either.
doesn't seem imminent. No, Dewar probably more so. At which point you have a natural centerman and just give him a look. See if he can give you something that Holmberg wasn't.
Well, then Kempf comes out of the lineup.
Holmberg stays out of the lineup.
Holmberg.
Does Holmberg have an option? Can he go back down?
I don't know. Is
I think he-
picking him up. Yeah, someone is.
He may have to clear waivers, I think.
They might have to trade a human.
Yeah. We're heading
Guys
towards
come
that.
back. Yeah.
Heading towards that.
Just right now, everybody's still going through the feel-out process coming out of training camp.
Mm-hmm.
But we are getting at that point where, some teams like the Winnipeg Jets have established themselves so well to start the season that
If they're 500 from here out, they're fine.
they're fine.
Oh my God, they're so good.
500.
Yeah, they're 11-1.
11-1?
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Oh my God.
Minnesota too. If they play 500,
Playoffs.
they get in.
Yeah.
And you look at the
Leafs on an 88-point pace, I think.
the East right now, right? And it's like Ottawa's pushing, right? But they're a mid-team right now, but they're really in the thick of things with the Leafs and a bunch of other teams. But
we know who's in.
we got Alan May coming up in the next hour, but where's Washington now all of a sudden to throw a curveball
They're in.
into the East? And what does it look like? Is it 4-4 out of the East? Is it 5-3? Is it 5 in the Atlantic? Is it 5 in the Metro?
4-4. Florida, Tampa Bay, Toronto, Ottawa, and then New York, Carolina, Washington, New Jersey. There's your playoff teams. Who else is getting in?
Let's fast forward to April, baby.
Boston,
Boston
or
in or out?
Detroit.
For you.
I'm not saying it. I'll say they're in because that means they'll be out.
Hold on, we got another hour.
Yeah.
We're going national coming up next. Frank Seravalli, Hockey Insider, president of hockey content with the Daily Faceoff. We'll get his thoughts on, could we see a Leaf trade?
Hope so.
He'll tell us.
This show would love it.
Okay, don't go away, everybody. We're just getting things started here on the Real Kyper and Bourne show. Back after these words. All right, let's take it national. Live on Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver and Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. This hour of Real Kyper and Bourne is brought to you by Bet365. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee. In the next few minutes, we'll welcome in Frank Seravalli, Hockey Insider, President of Hockey Content, Daily Faceoff. Also on board in about half an hour, we'll talk to Alan May, my former teammate in Washington, and now doing a terrific job breaking things down for the Monumental Sports Network, covering those surprisingly good Washington Capitals.
They are surprisingly good.
The reason I texted Alan today is because watching the start of the season for Ovechkin, I think we all have to prepare ourselves for a potential of this happening this year.
This year. So he would have to have a 40-goal season.
I mean, he's on fire.
Yeah, it's completely reasonable.
It's within the realm of possibility here. So that was the reason I wanted to track him down. It's like, what are they planning? What's going on here? Like maybe they're starting to scramble around, be like, oh God, he's actually getting hot here and they look good. So it's interesting to me. Anyways.
It is going to be interesting.
Well, there was a feeling in the last year and a half, based on his numbers, that it was slowing down. And Washington made the decision to not pause, but actually build. And
yeah,
it looks pretty good right now.
And they haven't even really had Matt Roy, who is like their big offseason D signing. I think he's only played one game this season. So their underlying numbers are way better. Their team is way better than it was last year. And kudos to the effort made by, is it Brian McClellan there still? No.
Brian McClellan's still involved.
Yep. He's the president, though, but there's and someone else. Anyway, they've done a good job.
I know we got Frank coming on, but at some point, I want to talk about your article on sportsnet.ca. I caught it out of the corner of my eye. I'm planning on reading it tonight, but I already can tell you I'm fascinated by it because it's based on
the show.
The fact that we've got 32 teams now in the NHL, and not all of them could be filled out with bona fide NHL players.
No, sir.
So it is basically an article on a watered down product, correct?
Well, yeah, it is. It is. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Check it out.
All right. Okay, let's welcome in Frank Seravalli, dailyfaceoff.com. Frank, thanks for joining us, man. So listen, there always seems to be this pause in the NHL between training camp and somewhere maybe American Thanksgiving or after that, where everybody feels like they got a terrific roster. They drafted well. Their prospects are ready for the next step. And then at some point reality sets in and they all look at each other in a room going, okay, we ain't that good, man. We got to go get some help. And that's when you get busier. So are we at that point, Frank, where teams know what they've had coming out of training camp and we'll start seeing some teams maybe move some bodies?
Yeah, Kyper, now that we've gotten to November and the calendar has turned, I think really now the urgency for a few teams ramps up. Now, it's really interesting, though, because of the conversations that you just talked about. I talked to one general manager last week who was working the phones trying to improve his team. I said, well, what are you looking for? He said, to get better. And I said, yeah, no, I get that. But what is it that you're looking for? He goes, oh, I'll know it when I see it. And he wasn't playing coy as to not give me information. You know what those calls are like. It's trying to get blood from a stone. Not possible. But in this case, I actually checked in with some other managers who I thought that he might have called. And I said, well, what is he looking for? They said, I don't know. He just went through like just about every guy on my list and on my team and was like, hey, is this guy available? Is this guy available? Point being, there's a handful of teams right now that are feeling the pressure, that need and know that they need to get better. But it's difficult to make moves at this exact juncture because there's a few teams that really like what they have too.
Yeah, you know, when I sort the league by points percentage, I can talk myself into the top sort of 8 teams and be like, yeah, that shakes out. You know, I could see those teams being playoff teams. But then you go to the very bottom of the league, and there's the Colorado Avalanche, the New York Islanders, and the Nashville Predators. Those are three pretty good teams that I think a lot of people saw as playoff teams this year. Do you see those teams getting desperate enough to actually get active and make moves soon?
I see three teams, all three of them for totally different reasons, Justin, kind of handcuffed.
Yeah.
I mean, the Islanders are more or less locked in with what they have. They haven't just doubled down or tripled down. They've quadrupled down over the last 4 off seasons with their group. If anything, with the Islanders, and I don't even know that this is in Lou Lamoriello's DNA, I could see them going the other way at the trade deadline if this continues. Might have to say goodbye to Brock Nelson or Kyle Palmieri, who, by the way, have had pretty much the only 2 really positive starts to their season.
Mm-hmm.
The Colorado Avalanche went into this year as the biggest wild card in the NHL. They had serious cap space limitations by virtue of Gabriel Landeskog and Val Nichushkin's uncertainty and when they'd be back. Nichushkin practicing today, eligible to return to the lineup on November 15th if he receives his final clearances. And then on top of that, because of those contracts and because they couldn't go out and spend that money, entered with a really thin roster. And then the issue was compounded with the injuries that they had. The Nashville Predators went out and spent a whole pile of money this offseason. But what I'm really struck with was a conversation that I had almost 1 calendar year ago with Barry Trotz. It was at Hall of Fame weekend in Toronto. I had him on my podcast, and we were talking about the build process of the Preds. He said, you know, as we look at it on paper now, we're thinking maybe 3 years from now is when we'd be back into a competitive cycle and have a chance to win. All of a sudden, they go on a heater last year. They make the playoffs, and then they go and add 3 massive pieces in Marchessault, Stamkos, and Shea, and they're going, well, holy smokes, we should be now in the mix because we've added them. And you just don't get to snap your fingers and go from team that was in rebuild mode to playoff team and then all of a sudden vault yourself into the inner circle of Stanley Cup contenders. That's not how it happens. This isn't Major League Baseball. You don't buy yourself a World Series. Right. Although, like the Dodgers can, the Yankees can. You can't buy yourself a Stanley Cup.
So just sticking to the East, I'm quite fascinated at this start because it appears that the Rangers and Carolina are where we thought they would be, and that would be, you know, the class of the Metro.
I'm going to stop you there, actually, because I wasn't sure on Carolina.
You weren't, eh?
I mean, they said goodbye to some really good pieces. Yeah. Brett Pesce, Brady Shea, up front. No more Jake Gensel. I thought they'd take a bit of a step back this year, maybe 5, 6, 7 points. Still be a good team and a playoff team, but 8-2 to start.
So meaning class, there no real threat of them missing the playoffs, right?
Okay.
In the Atlantic, it seems like right now Florida's kind of pushed themselves right at the top. Whether they stay there remains to be seen. Tampa's right behind them, and then you get into that 1 game over or even or 1 game under 500. There's just a clump of them. So, and we got Toronto and Boston in the mix. Ottawa's in the mix. So where do you see this? Do you see it as what we thought maybe could be a 4-4 from each division turned into a 5-3? What have the Washington Capitals done to really throw a wrench into that? Because we think New Jersey's still going to be there. We all thought they were going to make the playoffs this year. Did we not?
Yeah, I had New Jersey there, and the Caps I saw as a firm playoff team by virtue of the changes that they made in the offseason. The amazing thing about their start, and not just Alex Ovechkin turning back the clock with goals in 4 straight, has been that they've accomplished all of this and play with a really structured style. I think Spencer Carberry has done an unbelievable job in Washington. They've done it all without Matt Roy. Huge free agent signing. I would argue the best pure defender in the free agent class. He's played 8 minutes and 39 seconds so far this season, 2 periods and out. He's getting closer to a return, and that should further boost a Caps team that's been really stingy to play against so far this season. They've given up way fewer shots than most other teams, and they've had important steps forward. I heard you guys talking about them on my way in from some of their younger guys, Connor McMichael, Hendrix Lapierre. Those guys have all taken a big step forward, which has been huge for Washington. But to size up the Atlantic, I still think the Leafs are going to find a consistent stretch and probably pull away from that clump of teams. But after that, I kind of see it as absolute pure chaos. I think there's a real chance that for the first time in almost a decade, we have a division where all 8 teams finish with 80 or more points. Wow. So essentially, basically everyone's 500 or more. And where does the chaos come in? Well, any team that goes on a 3-game losing streak, you're going to see tons of panic in each market, because all of a sudden you don't go from, third or fourth, you go from third or fourth place all the way down to 7th or 8th. And it's going to be a big swing either way. I think that Boston will find a way to also normalize a bit, but that last chunk of teams, it's going to be a dogfight all year, I think, in terms of trying to avoid the roller coaster and the fits and starts of an NHL season.
Okay, one of those teams, obviously in the mid, is the Boston Bruins. We saw their superstar Pastrňák get benched for an entire period. What are your sources saying? What do you know behind the scenes of that story?
Well, naturally, we're going to make a bigger deal out of this than the Boston Bruins will. That's the case. The one thing that really stood out to me, and I compare it solely to Leon Draisaitl getting benched a couple weeks ago in Edmonton. The big difference is it's one thing to have a player sit out for a few rotations like Draisaitl did, and it's another for an entire period. And I know that I'm sure there were previous conversations with Pastrňák in terms of what exactly Jim Montgomery is looking for, the non-negotiables, and I'm sure the turnovers that occurred on Sunday were certainly not within the boundaries of what's acceptable. That said, it did feel like kind of a large punishment for a guy that still finds a way to really impact the game. I mean, go back and look at their power play goal that they scored in the first period against the Kraken. He doesn't end up on the score sheet. He doesn't get a point, but there's 3 Kraken players draped on him in the front of the net, which allows Charlie Coyle to get the puck and score. So even as someone who plays a bit of a deceptive role or a guy that can pull opponents away from your other players, he still is serving a big purpose for the Bruins. And yes, the start may have not been perfect for Pastrňák, but I think kind of maybe a little bit of a heavy hand from Jim Montgomery that I think everyone's been feeling the heat there. And yet Boston comes through with back-to-back wins, 2-0 on the weekend.
If you feel like your job's in jeopardy, a lot of coaches go, I'm going to do it my way, and we'll see if this works or see if it doesn't work, whatever, but doing it my way.
Justin, I've heard a bunch of coaches say, if I'm going to get fired, I might as well go out on my own terms. Exactly like that.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. And I don't know that he's at that point, but you can see mentally him being like, well, let's start trying to do it my way because it's not working. Looking at some teams around the league, we'll just start with Toronto. So Toronto trades Timothy Liljegren. It just doesn't seem like Liljegren's a Berube guy, and doesn't have the build or the type. Nick Robertson fits that mold too. It feels like if someone's going to get traded in Toronto, he's the next guy to go. There have to be some other players around the league, I would imagine, who are in similar boats where it's like this guy's footing with his team is not all that solid. Do you think Robertson is a potential name to get moved? And are there other names around the league that you're hearing frequently in trade rumors?
Yeah, so Robertson is certainly the guy that I would circle on that list in terms of choices that the Leafs have to make with their roster in the coming days. We know that the clock is ticking on the conditioning stints for Hakanpää and Connor Dewar. They're chock full at 23 men on the roster right now. The only person that has waiver exemption, of course, is Matthew Knies, and he's not going anywhere. So it's either waivers or trade. And I can tell you that there was at least one team locked in on Nick Robertson well deep into training camp that the Leafs felt like they could have made a move if they needed to. So I'd be curious to see if that team is still ready, willing, and able to make a move. And to answer the other part of your question, yeah, I think there's a few players around the league it's kind of wait and see mode, but I'll give you an example. The Seattle Kraken, they have a situation right now. Vince Dunn is on LTIR. When he gets off, they're probably going to have to move a forward. And 2 names that have popped up repeatedly in discussions and talks are Brandon Tanev and Yanni Gourde. Yanni Gourde's off to a tough start this season. No goals, 3 assists in, I believe, 12 games, something like that. So he's struggled. His minutes are down 2.5 to 3 minutes a game off of last season. He's someone that has certainly a ton of experience, valuable experience in the NHL. And the Kraken haven't seemed like they're interested in moving him just yet. And the same kind of goes for Tanev. Both these guys are pending unrestricted free agents. So you'll hear their names a lot throughout the course of the rest of the year, should they remain there. But Seattle wants to get better and quicker, and Tanev's a guy that impacts their forecheck. So you don't really want to remove him, but I don't know. We'll see. They've got decisions to make as well.
We're talking to Frank Seravalli, hockey insider with Daily Faceoff. So if we were to talk out west in terms of shoring up a blue line, is it Vancouver or Edmonton that strike first? What are you hearing from those two clubs in their search maybe for a defenseman?
Well, if it's strike first, the answer would clearly be Vancouver. One, the Edmonton Oilers were accruing cap space prior to the McDavid injury. I think they're not right now, but they were beginning to bank space. And ultimately, I think the play would be for Stan Bowman and Jeff Jackson and company to hang on as long as they can and continue to accrue space. And then at the deadline, pull the trigger on a more sizable impact transaction on the back end. The Canucks, we know from their profile in Patrick Allvin that he continues to call around the league, try and find the pieces possible to put in the lineup to improve that team from an efficiency standpoint and moving the puck on their back end. He's the most aggressive GM in the league, bar none. That said, they do want to see what this team looks like with their full complement for the first time. Dakota Joshua nearing his return, Derek Forbort as well. And once Forbort and Joshua get in the lineup, then the Canucks can begin to kind of tinker a bit. But make no mistake, Patrick Allvin's been working the phones. That's been a very top of Rick Tockett's wish list, is more efficiency, getting the puck out of their own end. Speaking of non-negotiables, that's it. Outside of their first pair, they don't really do it very well because there's a bunch of limitations on the guys further down their lineup.
Frank, if you're going to make a coaching change in the NHL, you kind of have to do it early enough in the season where there's enough games left to right the ship. And you don't want to do it too early because you kind of got to see how things are going. That means you kind of enter a coach firing season partway through the year. I don't know. Do you think we're getting kind of close to that? And if so, where are the hot seats around the league? I mentioned Montgomery. He could be a potential name. Are there others?
You know, I've seen a few talked about that I think are absolutely ridiculous. So let me start with them and kind of cross those off. And in Chicago, Kyle Davidson actually addressed that one today with Luke Richardson, calling it, quote, ridiculous, and would totally agree. There seemed to be some chatter out of Montreal. What happens with Marty St. Louis as the Habs continue to struggle in a year in which they expected to take a step forward? Not happening. The coaching staff and the front office are in lockstep together, and I think this is more of a roster construction issue, not to blame on the front office, but just a few players, particularly on their back end, that just aren't ready to take the full step forward yet. And they're in this awkward period between, hey, do we go out and support these guys now and trade for something when we're really not ready? That doesn't really seem to be a path that they want to go down either. I would say Derek Lalonde in Detroit, there's been tons of kind of smoke around that for, it seems like, a while now, stretching back into last season. They need to see results on the Yzer plan. I would say that he's probably on that list somewhere. We just touched on Jim Montgomery. I do think that seat was starting to sort of, it was, level 1 on the old car heat seat setting. It was not like level 2 or 3, but certainly kind of just warming up a little bit. But outside of that, I'm not really seeing a ton else in terms of action on the coaching front.
Frank, if we go behind the bench and take the stairs up to the front office, where are we with a guy like Kevin Adams in Buffalo?
What about Lou?
Well, I think
and Lou Lamoriello with the Islanders, JB just mentioned.
Yeah, I struggle with the Lou question because I don't really know how to answer it. I mean, 82 years old, same thing that we've seen, just banging your head against the wall, trying to have this team break through, and yet we're not seeing results. And now we're also running into some significant injuries. I mean, this is a team with a talent differential relative to the rest of the NHL that is certainly not in the Islanders' favor on most nights. And then you take Matt Barzal out of the lineup. That's not easy. So I think it's a fair question to ask. When it comes to Kevin Adams, this is year 5. I think he understands the pressure that he's facing. His predecessor in Jason Botterill only got 3 years and he was out. Kevin Adams, I don't know. Someone's going to need to explain the Lindy Ruff decision to me a little bit more, like I'm 5 years old, because you talked in such a great point, Justin, about the time to make a coaching change. The Devils are the perfect example. They waited too long last year. They played incredibly sloppy, made the same mistakes time after time, and yet they waited until their season was more or less over before making the coaching change with Lindy Ruff. And the Sabres turn around and say, hey, we watched the Devils this year, yet we're going to hire Lindy Ruff and we're not going to interview anyone else. So I'm not understanding that. And I think watching the Sabres team, who I think is loaded with talent. By the way, full disclosure, I picked the Sabres to make the playoffs this year.
Me too. Hey, there's someone else. I didn't know.
I'm not a Sabres hater, but I can't watch this team with how sloppy they play. And they're not improving defensively. They have not found a way to defend, which I don't know that you can just, can you go trade for that? Or is that an overall team mindset, structure, and mentality?
Got to get a question about goaltending in New York. No team depends on one goalie more than the New York Rangers and Shesterkin. Is there any movement? It's so quiet in terms of where his contract is going, and every day that goes by that he's not signed is making Ranger fans very nervous, Frank.
Well, you knew that the information clampdown was coming once it was reported that he declined the Rangers' massive offer, and totally understand it to that point. But I also feel like, in talking to people in and around the Rangers organization, that they feel like they're in a pretty good position. They don't see a huge reason, even though he's super important, and even though a lot of their success does hinge on Igor Shesterkin, it's still going to be really difficult to beat their offer. And you could create or bake any kind of conspiracy theory that you want, that, oh, he's going to end up going to a no state tax team, and everyone says, wink, wink, the Vegas Golden Knights in the summer if he goes to market. It's still a 7-year deal. And right now, the Rangers, to match $88 million, you need to go 7 times 12.57. That's a massive jump from 11 flat, which is why I think the Rangers are in a pretty solid position. And will they move? I'm sure they'll move a little bit, but they have been super clear since the start of this process that there is a limit in terms of what they're willing to offer, because they need to pay the rest of their team. And I understand that from their perspective as well.
Last one for me, Frank. There's a couple of wingers that have contracts coming up. Mitch Marner being one, Kirill Kaprizov another. Are you hearing anything on either of these guys? These guys were talking on the panel last night about Kaprizov getting paid $369 billion, or I forget the exact figures, but it was a lot of money thrown around.
Yeah, I mean, he's gone to the Sam Reinhart school of how to have a contract year.
Yeah,
because
he's
it
done
is
well.
It's unbelievable how well Kaprizov has played. I know last night his point streak ended, but he's been phenomenal, and he's a guy that's dragged that Minnesota Wild team into the fight on a night-to-night basis. I haven't heard anything in terms of their contract discussions. I don't think there's any concern from the Wild standpoint. They're like, we're paying this guy whatever it takes to keep him. He's probably going to eat up a huge chunk of their Parise Suter buyout money that's about to come off the book. So as good of a feeling as that is, they also know that they're devoting a part of that to Kirill Kaprizov. And Marner, no, I think it's been rather quiet on that front.
Frank, great stuff. I know we packed a ton in for you, but as always, you come through with flying colors for us. Thanks for doing this, man.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Frank.
Frank Seravalli. DailyFaceoff.com.
Takeaways?
Lindy Ruff was weird.
Lindy Ruff
The
is
hiring?
weird.
Yeah.
But that's just a relationship that's comfortable with an old pair of shoes.
Yeah.
But not interviewing anyone else. Like, just, I don't know.
There was a time when the Islanders were just like giving some alumni the opportunity to interview for a coaching job. Just kind of it was low time for the Islanders. And Clark Gillies was one of them. He gave Lindy Ruff the questionnaire to fill out, and Lindy filled it out, flying colors, and Clark ended up getting an NHL coaching job interview based purely on Lindy's answers.
Wow.
Which is actually even a funny way to interview for a head coach to begin with. But anyway, so I got a lot of love for Lindy.
Whatever works.
Whatever works. The one in Detroit though, Lalonde.
Lalonde, yeah.
I've heard that's getting we're hoping for more progress by now.
Yes, I think he's got himself in a position here where I don't think anything's kind of imminent.
No.
But they got to make a little bit of a move here. Do you think, like, we have seen some teams go on some heaters? We're going to see a team get on a 7 or 8 game winning streak here soon. Like, is someone going to
Carolina 6 in a row?
run with it?
Carolina 6 in a row. Florida 5 in a row is as hot as it get in the NHL right now.
But that's what Detroit needs.
Yeah. One of these teams
right?
in the middle pack.
Somebody needs one. Is it the Leafs on the cusp? The Bruins have gotten 2 in a row. That's a huge game Tuesday night against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
You know what is fascinating is like the Oilers getting 2 wins in a row with McDavid out. You know, we've seen it here in Toronto tons. Riley gets suspended 5 games. All they do is win.
Yeah, but Draisaitl is very comfortable.
He's good.
Carrying
He's quite good hockey player.
a team on his shoulders when McDavid's not there.
Should just never play them together. I know they often don't, but
I would allude to something like that in game time.
oh, good.
It's game time. Visit at Bet365. Visit the app for latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. Now, what I was trying to do on Friday before my phone malfunctioned was look at some of the futures for the awards. And we were talking about Nikita Kucherov. I think that was in the break. We were talking about Nikita Kucherov and how good he's been this year. The favorites for the Hart Trophy this year. Nikita Kucherov is the favorite at plus 325. Connor McDavid is still the second favorite at plus 350.
McJesus.
Which is actually
Coochie coo.
a bit of coochie coo. Shout out my boy David Hammer. That I was sipping tea and I spit it out when he said that. Connor McDavid at plus 350 is pretty good value, considering there's already talk about him coming back this weekend and eventually he'll get hot. Kaprizov plus 450, McKinnon plus 500, Panarin, Makar, and Auston Matthews at plus 1,400. And then it goes up to Eichel at plus 25. And Draisaitl plus 2,000. So
McKinnon looks
20 to 1.
really good. Same with Makar. Like if they drag that Colorado team into playoffs, either of those guys has a real chance at winning the Hart.
Makar is interesting at 12 to 1 to me.
Yeah.
And the Norris Trophy, Cale Makar is a minus 140 favorite at this point. Adam Fox next closest plus 550, Quinn Hughes plus 750. Evan Bouchard is plus 1,200, and then it kind of goes up from there.
I might bet that Makar number.
It's not going to get worse.
Yeah.
And the Rocket Richard Trophy, still the favorite, Auston Matthews. Plus
Really?
plus 140.
And
So
he's
they
on
still
pace
think
for what, 35?
they still think
Crushed it.
He's there's many stretches in his career where you just absolutely feel like this guy's a goal a game guy, right?
and there's
There's many stretches
now-
where he's a 2-goal
and
game
now
guy.
he can't score in a soccer net right now.
And the last thing I wanted to bring up, to make the playoff odds, we were talking about the Boston Bruins and will they make the playoffs? In the first one we were talking
Playoffs?
They are a minus 160 favorite to make the playoffs. If you don't think they're going to make the playoffs, it's plus 130 right now. So they're still the books still favor them as a playoff team.
To me, I know it's early. It's only like 12, a dozen games, 13 games, but for me, it's shaping up to Ottawa or Boston.
It is. Detroit could sniff around, but it's Ottawa or Boston for me too.
I think the scoring of the Ottawa Senators has certainly woken me up a little bit the last week and a half, 2
The
weeks.
Senators are minus 105
to make playoffs.
to make the playoffs.
They're now favored to make the playoffs. Sens fans, you hear
Sens
it here.
fan, yeah. Bet365 believes in you way more than I do.
Here is they have 12 and 13 points, Boston and Ottawa.
Yeah.
But Boston is a -8 goal differential. Ottawa's +9.
Yeah.
That goal differential tends to work out. If you're a plus team, you tend to get in.
It's one of the most telling stats.
It's crazy. You sort the league at playoff time, and it's like the 16 teams who are in,
And didn't
usually plus, just barely.
wasn't Washington big time minus?
-37 made playoffs last year.
That's insane. Anyways, that was game time presented by Bet365. Visit the app latest odds to find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. It's 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly.
So the curveball for me is the Washington Capitals.
Mhm.
They hold their spot in the Metro and get in,
Competitive division, boys.
right?
A lot of good
Then
teams.
it puts basically Florida, Tampa, and Toronto in the Atlantic, and then you're left with the Bruins and the Senators.
Yeah. No, it does feel like they have improved enough that this is a playoff Capitals team. And I think a really good point by Frank was Connor McMichael and Alexei Protas have been major surprises, both with 12 and 11 points, double-digit points, which, I mean, that makes it's like free money finding those
We'll
guys.
find out how major they've been when we come back with Alan May, Capital Analyst with Monumental Sports Network, and the increasingly stronger odds of Ovechkin breaking Gretzky's record as early as this season. That and more when we return to Real Kipper and Bourne. Last block. This hour, Real Kipper and Bourne, brought to you by Bet365. As promised, let's bring in Alan May, Capitals analyst with Monumental Sports Network and former NHLer, teammate of mine, and a real happy guy because his Washington Capitals, the team that he covers, is 8-3, and Ovi's like old Ovi or new Ovi. I don't know, but he's got 7 goals. He's on pace for 52 May Day, and this guy ain't slowing down.
Well, he's refreshed, Ovi, because already every single game he's played this season was better than what he was last year. And last year he just didn't have it. He didn't have his legs, but I was really worried. He didn't have a shot for the majority of the year. He wasn't making great passes. It seemed like he lost his hands. And I know that after his father had passed away, he had never been the same stats-wise. I think the offseason was something he really needed. The mental, the emotional, the physical commitment are all back to the normal levels I'm used to with Ovechkin. And his line with Strome and Protas has been doing everything. And defensively responsible. And Ovi's been leading the way in the back check and just little plays that we hadn't seen in the past. I've been really impressed with his overall attitude and execution of everything. But the line, one of the kids that doesn't get enough, I think, attributes around the league, or I'm probably use a better word for that, but Dylan Strome has been killing it all season long. And he's been an incredible Washington Capital in his short time here.
So, Alan, the Caps are a really positive surprise, I think. Not surprising, they're a playoff team last year, but far better than last season. What do you have as the main reasons for what appears to be such a drastic improvement over the summer?
Well, I'm not throwing shade at you two guys because I love you both, but a lot of the media that I did hear over the offseason, they didn't notice the June that the Capitals had, the July that they had. They didn't go out and act like they won the Stanley Cup. They didn't have a parade on, July 2nd. What they did do is they went out and they put together a very methodical roster of how they wanted to place players. It was a gamble on Pierre-Luc Dubois, but we saw him play in Columbus, and he was always a very good all-around player. I thought he played well in Winnipeg as well, but last year everything was out of kilter in Los Angeles. So I think by bringing him in here, he's fit in so well with Tom Wilson and Connor McMichael. What an incredibly complete line that is. Dubois is not putting up the points like McMichael and Wilson are right now, but he's got puck possession. He's bodying everyone off the puck. And when you look how they were able to build this roster, the fourth line, Taylor Radish, 20 goals 2 years ago in Chicago. Last year, the only person that seemed, well, maybe there was 3 guys that had decent numbers in Chicago with Bedard. There was a couple other players. But you look at that. He's been very well on that fourth line with Nick Dowd. And then Brandon Duhaime brings a lot of what Nick did when he played. It was a guy that finishes his hits. He can notch a goal here and there. He'll fight. He'll drop the gloves. He'll do what he has to. So you got some more sandpaper in Duhaime on that line. But I thought they were very methodical. The fact that they're 8-3 without Chychrun, who's been like a left-handed John Carlson, and Matt Roy was injured in the first period of the first game, to be where they're at right now, I think is very, very good. And this team will only get better as the season goes on. And they build even more confidence within the dressing room, which they're carrying out onto the ice.
How close is Matt Roy coming back, and what does that mean to Charlie Lindgren, who's coming off of a pretty good season last year, and the fact that Logan Thompson's there now?
Well, the biggest thing, Matt Roy, I think he's going to play this week in the next few days. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays Wednesday. And Dylan McIlrath has filled in incredibly well and, sent a lot of messages around the league with that fight with Matt Rempe, but he's kept his game simple. Matt Roy is one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League analytically when it comes to defensive defensemen. Outlet passes are excellent, so he's going to bolster the lineup. And when you look at Charlie Lindgren and Thompson, they're both winning their games. And yesterday, Charlie Lindgren was put in a tough spot. I thought the Caps lost They ran out of gas in the second period against the Carolina Hurricanes after probably using too much fuel in that game against Columbus in the first period the night before. But, the goaltending, it looks like it's going to be a true 1-2 punch all year. I don't know who the 1 and who the 2 is, so we're going to go 1A and 1A+. But right now, everything's going well for the Capitals. They're killing penalties at a great rate. The power play is a work in progress, but I always say if you're dependent on your power play to win games, you're in trouble. You've got to win 5-on-5. And one of the things that the Caps are executing very well this season, 5-on-5, and they don't have to dumb it down like they did last year. Last year, for my job of covering this team every single night, I had to bite my tongue a lot because it was pretty tough to watch, even when they were winning. When they won a close game, 90% of the time. When they lost bad. It felt like 90% of the time. And that made for that horrible goal differential. But at the same time, they knew what they had to do to win games. They've taken what they learned last year defensively. I thought they've gotten a little bit better so far this season, but now they're able to unleash the dogs and create offense, because you see what the young guys are doing in Protas and McMichael. They're blazing. They're lighting it up. They're going up and down the ice with a lot of speed and a lot of confidence and finding, ways to score goals and create offense.
So the head coach there is a University of Anchorage alumni. Go Seawolves. So he's a brilliant man, like myself. Tell us about Spencer Carberry's role in the success of this Washington Capitals team.
You know what I love about Spencer, and first and foremost, as a former player, it's not that he went to University of Alaska all the way up, but it's the fact that the way he communicates with the players and he communicates with the press. The players buy everything he's selling because he doesn't lie to them. He's very positive. He gives them a roadmap of how to play. And then in the press, he brags them up when they win. And when they lose, it's a short 1.5, 2 minute presser. Doesn't ever throw anyone under the bus. There's a lot of coaches in the National Hockey League that love to throw their players under the bus. That creates animosity because it goes against what you're saying in the room and in the office, on the plane, wherever it is, to your players, and then you're throwing them under the bus. So I think the biggest thing, the honesty, the passion, the conviction that he's had. Last year, when they had those tough losses, he wasn't burying guys. He was trying to find a way with his coaching staff to amplify the players at what they do well and what they needed to correct. So an incredible communicator, an excellent tactician, as are the guys on his bench, because they've taken what they've got for a roster this year and they've upgraded everything they've done. Last year, he had to figure it out on the fly. This team's not very fast. It's not scoring goals. This year, he's got a team that's fast and can score goals, and it's pretty big. It's about, I'm not sure, I think they're the third largest team in the National Hockey League. All the players they brought in on free agency, of the 7 guys, 6 of the guys were 6'2" or plus. Mangiapane, the small guy, is the most noticeable hard worker every single night. And so they brought in a great group of players, and I think they're playing more of a big brand of hockey.
We're talking to Alan May, Capitals analyst for Monumental Sports Network. I want to switch it back to Ovi a little bit here. And just in terms of what's in store as he gets ever so closer to Wayne Gretzky's record here, Alan. And I assume he's been focused right from the get-go. There's nobody that wants this record more than Ovi to end after this season. He does not want to go into a summer of having it hang over his head. So where does that put the Washington Capitals in terms of the prep work to build up to this? Has it changed because it's a lot more likely that it will happen this year with a 52-goal pace than it would have been what we thought at the beginning of the season? How has the landscape changed as we prepare for this?
Well, the biggest thing right now is I haven't heard, if he's asked the question about the goal scoring record, he said, yes, I do want to have it. But at the same time, he'll always finish that sentence or that statement with, we want to have success. We want to be a better team. We want to have playoff success. So when you look at it from inside the dressing room, the players have all been focused on winning games. And what he's doing right now is bonus. And it's backed as being, did not want him to go out and end his career these last few years on a limp. I want him to go out for his sake, for our sake, for the game's sake, to go out skating like he is and playing like he is. As far as the team is concerned, they've had plans in place for a couple of years. The way we market on our broadcast, my network is now owned by the team. We're not muted. They don't force us to say anything. I'm still allowed to have my opinions. And my opinion is I hope that when we get to that record and Ovechkin, if he is able to do it this season, that it's on a night that we're broadcasting. ESPN and TNT tried to handicap late in the season and take a bunch of our games. You know, they can take, in the States, I think it's 12 or 13 games. So they took 12 games. They took a bunch of us early, and at the end, it's going to load up again in that last part of March and early part of April on our air, selfishly. I know also, regardless of whose air it's on, but there's a lot of plans in place. Right now, we show every night the Obi watch, every night that he scores, we highlight that. But the biggest thing is it's a lot more fun covering this team when they're winning. And, you know, no matter what, because in the States, it's a way different relationship you have with your fan and your regional networks. And we don't bury our players. We highlight the game. We look for positives. And we don't have to find a villain, because hockey season ends after the last game and it doesn't start until the first game in the States. It's not crazy all the time like it is back home in Canada. And, you know, they're checking in who's doing what on their vacation and everything. Here, when hockey starts, officially, preseason doesn't start the cap season. Opening night starts it for them when it comes to coverage of the team. And so it's a lot different relationship. People are coming to our games. It's a thrill for them every night. The team's a lot better. Last year was very painful. This year has been spectacular every single night.
Well, listen, I don't know how many people had the Washington Capitals making the playoffs at the beginning of the season, but I imagine at 8-3 to start, it would be a big disappointment if they miss it at this point for you.
Well, it would. And the only way I think that happens if they had a catastrophic injury problem. And I really did, in every show that I had done this summer, every talk show, right until today, I felt that they would make the playoffs, and they would be first or second in the Metro when it was all said and done. Because when you look at the roster, the way they put the roster together, guys, they plugged in pieces. You know, when the New England Patriots were doing well, you know, they were plugging players into the proper places. Then you have the growth of these younger players like Connor McMichael. All of a sudden is an every night NHL player who's probably exceeded what they thought his potential was. Alexei Protas, using all 6'6", using his skating, using his speed. So they've had upgrades there. The defense has gotten better by having Chychrun in the lineup for the 8 games, forced other players to play less. Rather than Seravalli being John Carlson's partner every night, it was Jacob Chychrun, and they looked excellent together. Seravalli would go down, and he plays with Matt Roy. That's going to be a great defensive complement. The goaltending last year, you know, it was a tough year for Darcy Kemper. I love the guy, but it was a tough year. The team didn't seem like they played as well. This year, what do we got? Logan Thompson at 5-0 already. I think it's 5-0. And when you look at that, just a lot of competent pieces that they added to the lineup. The fourth line wasn't enough last year. This year, the fourth line has been tracking very well, and the players on the penalty kill, excellent. But the 5-on-5 game, when it's as polished as it is right now, they can play any style of hockey. I think Tom Wilson's back to being a very formidable player, and he's fitting perfectly well with Dubois. They're both 6'4". Physique-wise, they look like the exact same guy. They're both jacked, they're big, and they're dominating inside the offensive zone as far as controlling the puck. Dubois, even yesterday against Carolina, who was in your face all game, he was bodying and shouldering guys off the puck all game long. And another thing with Dubois, he's not in Winnipeg, he's not in Toronto, he's not in Calgary, Vancouver, Edmonton. He doesn't take a beating in the media if he makes a bad pass here. So, you know, they're not under the microscope. They can live their lives. There's good and bad with that, but I prefer, and I think that's why the American teams have won the Stanley Cup for so long. Since the internet started, the players aren't being hounded all day. You can live.
Don't you blame us?
I went home. I took my 20-year-old son to Edmonton last year for the Stanley Cup Finals. I said, "You want to see what real playoff hockey is?" He was in Vegas with me when the Capitals won the Cup. We sat in a box with Gary Bettman and Bill Daly every game in Edmonton. And that cash register that they have in Edmonton, the 50-50 was like $25 million. And I think people were the games. The people were lining up at 2 p.m. out front of the arena, and after the game until midnight, everyone was just going crazy. So it's a hockey mad country. I don't blame it. I hope a Canadian team wins soon, and I think it would be absolutely amazing. And that if Toronto ever wins it again in our lifetime, whoever wins it on that team is a legend forever. Whoever the coach is, whoever the general manager is, it'll be incredible for hockey. And hopefully it won't have to be 50 or so years till it happens again. But I'm not blaming the media. I'm just looking at it's a lot easier to play hockey in the United States as a National Hockey League player.
Alan, great job as always, man. Thanks for doing this.
Hey,
All right,
stay safe tomorrow. Good luck.
Yep.
The other May Day.
I believe he's in D.C. on November 5th tomorrow.
What's happening tomorrow?
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah.
Something.
Large
election.
Yeah.
That was a lot of information. Chris Patrick is the GM there, by the way. Is the name I forgot. I have a question for you. Do we have time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And not to disrespect Chris Patrick, but like it's hard when you've got like these presidents and these bigger names that you still know probably are
big input,
pulling the majority of the strings.
Yeah. So this Ovechkin record thing.
Yeah.
And how do you think fans and the NHL are going to receive and promote this?
You can't help but be sensitive of the political landscape out there. And I'm sure they have daily meetings on it, to be honest with you, on how to go about it. And I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that means, but you know, this is a guy that's been in the league a long time. Between himself and Crosby and a few others have really carried the mail for the league.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to be well respected, but I don't know what that means, to be quite honest with you.
He's as big a star as we have in hockey and have had. You know, what's hard is, this guy has Putin on his Instagram page.
I don't know. I haven't checked lately. Has that changed at all? Is it not changed?
I haven't checked either, in fairness.
I don't know.
But I mean, like, if I'm not mistaken, I think Gretzky's Ukrainian. You know, like I'm just saying that there is some tension about they're not even allowed to be in the Four Nations face-off. You know, the Russians aren't. So I'm just curious if there's any sensitivity around promotion of this or not.
The answer is yes, and to what degree, we don't know.
Right.
The conversation around that part of it has certainly, cooled though. Like
around the Russia-Ukraine part?
No, just around like the controversial part of it. Like it was when it first started.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was fielding questions about it in like press conferences, and there was the tension with the PR. Like there's all that stuff, and that just feels like it's taken a back seat to this. And I don't say that's the right thing. I'm just saying it's kind of the way the internet works, the way like our day-to-days work, that everybody moves on to the next thing.
But we're a long ways from the record here. So I feel like that's part of the cooling off. I mean, as Canadians feel one of Gretzky's big records going away, someone who, I don't know, is not.
Listen,
I've never thought
at the end of the day, since 1972, they've been our biggest rival.
Right.
Russia, Canada, Russia, Canada, Russia,
Sure.
Canada, Russia.
So I just don't know that we're going to get Canadians standing on their seats to be like,
Russians taking
David
one of
Amber,
the greatest, right? One of the greatest.
David Amberkov?
Right? A rival,
Hitting
Canadian
DA.
rival is taking one of the best records out there in hockey history away.
Yeah.
And that's where you come into play a little bit, right? With your emotions.
Yeah, listen, I don't want it, but I have come to grips with it. And
I mean, he's the greatest goal scorer the league's ever seen.
well, not yet.
No.
Well, but
he is.
Well, no, not yet.
Okay. By
The man with
numbers.
the man with the most goals is the greatest goal scorer.
Statistically speaking, you are correct.
But not even on a point per game or goal per game basis.
Yeah. I just think it's a big story that's starting to sneak up on us quicker than I thought. How about Mayday? The other Mayday saying that they're stealing all the games from them late.
That's a nice little
I
nugget.
love
eh?
that nugget.
Yeah.
That ESPN and
ESPN should
TNT's
hire May and their crew for the game if they get the game.
Of course. I
Yeah.
love that.
just trying to muscle in, those big
That's
networks.
great. Good for ESPN. That's what you should do.
Yes.
You spend billions on it. We want that one.
That one's going to mean a lot, I think.
Yeah.
All right, just like that, 2 hours in the books. Our thanks to Alan May moments ago and Frank Seravalli from dailyfaceoff.com. We're back tomorrow on the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. If you get a chance, give us a rating and review. We'd love to hear from you. Have a great night, everybody.